It is Sunday, April 19th, 2020, and I've gone and left the phone on the other table. Damn it! Some days it's exhausting being me. It is 12:42 Eastern Standard Time. That would be noon, not midnight. So it would be PM, but not in the middle of the night. Okay, this video is about the two books that I channeled back in the summer of 2018. I woke up on a July morning, the 5th, I believe, and realized that I needed to write these. And I wrote the first, I think it's 8,000 and something words in 2 weeks. I wrote the following 8,000 and something words in the following 2 weeks. I started on book 3 and then had to stop and stick my head into the revolving door of self-publishing. Okay, the first thing I have to say about that is I suck as an editor. I'm dyslexic, and even with all the spelling programs, the first editions of these got published with a lot of mistakes. I haven't recently made a valiant effort to correct those, and I've published the second editions. When one channels information, one doesn't always log in the brain, the computer, what one is writing and what one is typing. So there were many times where I'd be typing for a period of minutes, stop, take a breath, or having typed for a long time, stopped to have a cigarette, and gone back and read what I had typed and said to myself, frequently out loud, "Fuck! I didn't see that coming. Who knew that was happening?" Or, "Shit, I didn't think it was going to go that way." When you become the vehicle for the data to come through, you just type. And I could not type fast enough. The words, the characters were complete in my head. And the scenarios were just there. I didn't have to think about them. There was no composing. There were times I wished there was writer's block, but it was given to me, and I was told, since I work for the Mother Goddess, that I needed to get her words out. That is why you don't see my name on the cover of this book. It's not about me. In fact, in the biography section on Kindle, I just say that I am Mother's typist, and that is what I do. I type what she tells me. She asked me to deliver this message in the form of 2 novels. Well, 2.5, actually. And I have done that. This video is not going to make me a lot of money. Trust me on that. The books retail for $15 a piece, and I think I might get $3 a book. And on the Kindle books, I think I make a whole $1.50. It is not about financial gain. It's about putting the data out. When I first published them in September of 2018, I then stuck my head further into self-publishing and was horrified at the irony that in order to promote one's written word, the tangible in-your-hand data that you could go back and look at again, one had to be completely immersed in the cyber dimension, which I had very, very little experience at. In the past 18 months, I have sojourned into there. And, well, it's a mixed bag. Some of it abso-fucking-lutely horrifies me. And they tell me that I have reached some that they wanted me to reach. I don't like my numbers. I think it's a big fucking failure. And I did not go into what is required of an author of blogging and flogging and all that other happy horse shit. My thinking was, I've done the work. I've given the hours of my life. I've given the months of my life. I've sweated through this, getting this into print, and it's there. They will either pick up the data and absorb Mother's message, or fuck them if they don't. Then I spent the next 18 months pretending I wasn't listening to her anymore. Well, at least in that regard. She kept saying, get back and finish book 3, and I just kept making excuses. And part of it was that I was tired. Part of it was that I was simply disgusted with having done the work and given the time that humans were not getting how important this information is in here. And while it is in a novel, the data is what she asked me to give. And the characters, all of the characters in Tennessee and the mountains in Tennessee, which are 2 different groups, and the hill folk in Kentucky, and many of the people in North Carolina at Dancing Goat Farm were given to me whole. I didn't have to think about them. I didn't have to devise their character. I just heard them talking in my head, and I typed as fast as I could. Dancing Goat's Farm, on the other hand, while many, many, many of the characters were just given to me. I could see them. I knew who they were. I knew where they came from. But I began to panic, actually, and question my abilities to... I knew that the number of characters in that part of the story were a lot. And I was given permission to base many of the characters on people I actually know. And that made it so much easier for me to write, because as they gave me the data, I simply put it in their words, and I know them well. So, yes, some of them are based on real people and how they would, in fact, respond in this situation. This is my attempt at saying one more time, the data is out there. If you do not get it from my books, get it from somewhere else. The old gods are stirring. They are adamant that the human race save itself. In order to save ourselves, we must save the planet. I don't actually know how to get people to read these. And as I said, it's not like I'm going to make a lot of money on it. I think in the 18 months, it's been, I think I made $7 or $8. That really did a whole lot for me. They're really leaving me floundering here. Like, you did the work, now sell the book. Really? The book starts out with the Prelude, which is a very cryptic email, and the signer of the email is Mother. I had not looked at the books for some time, and with recent events, very recent events, one of my acquired daughters mentioned that her son said, "That's in Auntie Gia's book." So we were having coffee, she in Massachusetts, me here, and Asia and I reread the Prelude together. And there is something that sent ice cold shivers down my spine when I read this. The power brokers care only for themselves. Within 18 months, the global machine will begin to fail. In the ensuing chaos of global-wide panic, famine, increasing tectonic shifts, volcanic eruptions, and yes, 100,000-year floods, the sheeple, consumed by their fear, will become like rabid dogs. And while I was reading the last two paragraphs, Asia, who was actually very excellent at math, unlike me, said, Mama, do you know when 18 months is from the date the book starts, which is Meban, or the autumn equinox, in 2018 that happened to fall on the 23rd of September? She said, Mother, 18 months from that date is today. That was March 23rd, 2020. And I still resisted Mother's insistence that I pick the books back up, re-edit, fix a few things that I had shifted in it, and finish book 3. And when I didn't listen, I went to delete a file of pictures. It was just a folder of pictures. I had moved it to my hard drive, my external hard drive, and I sent it to the dustbin. And when it was finished putting it in the trash, I suddenly realized that all the folders, pretty much 99% of the folders on my C drive, were empty. It took 9,865 files. And I know what you're saying. Go to the trash and get them back. The trash was empty. I had 2 days of a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, and I did manage to find a program. I did manage to recover 9,000 files. However, still not through with me. Just in case I was continuing to be an obstinate cunt, there was an issue with the files. They came back, but their names were gone. Every photograph, every file, every document, the names were gone. They were now a series of letters and numbers. So in order to open them, to save them, I had to open them, verify that it was not corrupted, rename it, and then save it in a new folder. And many of those folders were gone. I had to reconstruct the whole C drive. With the exception of the books. My digital copies of the books. And they still had their name on them. They still said Mother Book 1, Chapter this, Book 2, Chapter that, Book 3. Everything was there with its original name. So at that point, I figured I better fucking get back to the books. And I reread Book 1. And, reading 400 and something pages is not that hard, except if you were editing. And that takes a whole lot longer. And then I had to do it with book 2. And then I had to put my head back into remembering how one publishes, and then there was confusion and there was chaos with my ISBN numbers, and I ended up having to completely delete book 1 and book 2 and install them again as second editions. And they are slightly expanded. Book 1 gained, I think, 25 pages, and I don't remember what book 2 gained. A lot of it was clarification, and because I didn't have a real editor, and a real editor who understood about channeling metaphysical data, my first books read like screenplays, which would have been nice if I was selling them as a movie, but I wasn't. So part of the additional pages is that I had to write it as conversation, as a novel, as opposed to a screenplay. And then I began on book 3. And I opened all the files, and chapter 40 was blank. Every chapter I have ever written has multiple copies of it. Whether it's the first draft, the third draft, a corrected draft, the spelling needs to be done. There are multiple copies of every chapter I have written. Yep. I had a copy of book 3 from chapter 35 to chapter 39. I had chapter 41 and 42 intact and copies of them. There was one copy that survived the crash of chapter 40, and it was blank. There was something about its macros having gone missing. And I read all of book 3 twice, and then I read the last 2 chapters I had written, and I had no fucking idea what I wrote in chapter 30. Not uncommon, but generally I have a few highlights, or I have copies of it that I can resort to. Nope. So I was sitting there, it was about 2:30 in the morning, and I said, what the fuck am I going to do with this now? Do I renumber them? Do I just slide 41 and make it 40? And Thor said no. Very loudly he said no. And I said, Mother, what am I to do with this? And in my head I began to hear, abracadabra, I'm going to reach out and grab you. And I said, oh, so abracadabra. Now you see it, now you don't. Whatever was in that chapter has become irrelevant. And amazingly, chapter 39 ends quietly at the end of a night. And chapter 41 starts up. I mean, they hit the ground running, but you can live without that missing data. I know they had the two main characters had an argument. I don't remember what it was, and that's it. So you and I will never know what they did in the wee hours of the 27th of October until I think it was 5 a.m. on the 28th of October. That's just no longer relevant. So if you get to the point where I finish book 3 and you buy book 3, you're going to find 40 is missing. And I left it that way because that's what I was told to do. And that's it. That's all I got. Here's the books. They're on Kindle. Go and read the ebook. It's like, I don't know, $3.50 or something. Get the data. So much of it is very pertinent to what is transpiring on the planet right now. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I am making this video just like I wrote in these 2 books because Mother asked me to. And I don't think I'm going to make any more pleas for you to pick up the fucking books and get the data, because I've done my job. Your job is to find out what the fuck is going on. If you're not getting the data directly from the gods, then I suggest you find somebody's book, if not this one, and figure it the fuck out. Because time is, in fact, of the essence. And as I have said through all of the videos since I came back, how you proceed from this moment forward, your actions, your choices, will have ramifications for how you spend the rest of your time in this body. And that's it. So, that's all I got.